Hi, Kari.
Hi, how are you, Dean?
I'm good, thank you. So, Kari, hypothetical, you just started a 1-year fractional CMO engagement. Today's day one. Okay. Tell me what a fractional CMO is and what a fractional CMO does in the first 90 days of that 1 year, and let people know a little bit about you too.
Sure. Well, my name is Kari Franz, and my company is called Brigad Marketing Services. I've been a fractional CMO for quite some time. I actually come to this position with decades of experience at major corporations in the US like Discover Card, Charles Schwab, Google Cloud, Adobe, and I've also been a fractional CMO at many startups and helped them catapult their growth. I live in Northern California, but originally from Chicago. In terms of what a fractional CMO is, it's actually someone that focuses just on strategy, really. You're not distracted, if you will, by other requirements of a full-time CMO, like, employee management and reviews and all of that. You are laser focused on strategy and implementing that strategy. So in terms of the first 90 days, the way that I approach it is that, the first phase is really just to get to know the company inside and out, really understanding who they are, what they are all about, who their target market is, and then really looking at all of the marketing programs that they've done in the past to see what has worked and what has not worked. And really getting to know the strengths and weaknesses of your staff, right? Because everything is done as a team. We can't do this alone. It takes, a very large team to really implement large marketing campaigns. And in the case of B2B, really partnering, with the sales team as well. So the next phase is really to figure out what we're going to do, after we get to know the company and what they're all about and what their goals are, what will be the best way to get them to achieve their marketing goals. And so that's really putting together the marketing strategy. And, many cases I work with the agencies that the company has. And in some cases, I don't. Sometimes I evaluate those agencies and see that they're not doing a good job for the company. And then I help them find new agencies as well. And I usually source them globally because I have great talent in Canada and in Australia and India and Pakistan that is a fraction of the cost of US agencies. And yet I won't compromise on quality. So.
Right. And Andrea, hi. Okay, so same question then. You started a 1-year hypothetical engagement. Today's day one. What happens in the first 90 days typically? And let folks know a little bit about you.
Thanks. I'm Andrea Cheney. I am on the other side, I think, of Kari. I've been a fractional for about 6 months now, but prior to that, I bring 20 years, so a couple of decades of marketing experience, and I've worked with companies of all sizes on the inside, from being employee number 6 at a startup to working at Fidelity Investments in the healthcare marketing organization and in workplace investing. I think echoing a lot of what Kari said. As far as what a fractional CMO is, really quickly, just sort of touching back on that. It's sort of, I think there's some confusion now because there's this emergence of fractional CMOs in the market. And so I do often introduce myself as a fractional CMO and a marketing consultant. And I think they serve very different purposes. Oftentimes you talk with a potential client, a prospect, and they're not looking for a fractional CMO. They're looking for someone to do a thing. I think what a fractional CMO is exactly like Kari said, is someone who comes in and does the strategy. They're not the one who is in there doing, running their Google ads or doing any of the sort of implementation. And there is potentially some element of people management. It sort of looks different depending on what the client needs. And I think within the first 90 days, again, echoing sort of what Kari said, it's really getting in there and getting to know the organization. It's getting to know the key stakeholders. It's aligning on goals, which, you know, we should have done pre signing on that dotted line. But a lot of times, you know, it's always helpful to get back in and ensure that we're aligned on goals. And doing the research, as Kari said, getting to know the team, strengths, weaknesses, auditing what they've already done. And then I think as you're sort of starting to think about to build out the strategy to say, how are we going to solve for this big stuff? It's getting some quick wins. And I think that's something I've certainly found as a fractional and as a new fractional is figuring out where I can get those quick wins while still building out the bigger stuff.
Okay. All right, let's switch away from being fractional CMO for a minute. Let's pretend that you're the CEO at your client's company, okay? And you're probably the first fractional CMO that, maybe even the first CMO of any stripe, but you're the first fractional CMO the company's ever hired. And so you go to your CEO friends and say, hey, like, I know that you've had fractional CMOs. Like, how did you get your money's worth out of that person? Right? I managed to convince the board. I got a year's allocation to pay them. How do I get like maximum value out of that, Andrea?
Great question. I think it all goes back to alignment and expectations, like anything. So I think going in as a full-time CMO, that's really important, but I think it's particularly important as a fractional. I think in advance, before the engagement starts, when you're just sort of talking to them and in the discovery phase, it's aligning on goals. But if you're sort of looking out as a CEO, I'm 1 year out now and I look back and I say, that was... I got the value I wanted. What success looks like this. It is from the beginning, we aligned on goals. We set a strategy that actually did something. It accomplished something. I think for the CEO, it's really about the expectations, and it's on the CMO to work with the CEO to set realistic expectations. I think it's understanding that, yes, in a year out, you can look back and see what we achieved. But I think if we're looking at it in a month or in 3 months, that sort of looks a little bit different.
Okay. Kari, let's make this question, let's be playful with it a little bit. Imagine that you're the CEO at your client's company, right? You're talking to other CEOs who've had fractional CMOs. And you say, and one of them says, you know what? Like, I think we hired a great person. We completely wasted the money. How did they waste the money? How did they waste the money they spent on a fractional CMO? CMO is great.
Okay, good to know that at least that CMO was awesome.
Managed to screw it up, right? It's not always the CMO's fault.
Taking 4-hour lunches every day.
No. CMO's fantastic. They still managed to waste the money because they wouldn't do X, or they wouldn't, or they couldn't like provide the CMO with X, or they kept doing X when the CMO was trying to do their job. Like, how did they waste the money that they'd gotten approval for and spent on that CMO?
First of all, my visceral reaction was, oh my gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that CMO was very frustrated as well. I think, so much is very important in the beginning is to lay the groundwork. And the CEO needs to tell all the stakeholders that CMO is going to be working with is that, she's the one that you're answering to, right? Not me. That, the head of sales needs to be aligned, right? Head of finance needs to be willing to let go of budget, when it is approved by the CEO, and we need to move forward. I think that many times that alignment with the other stakeholders isn't done. So then you waste time, to implement these things, right? I think also just in the beginning, one of my qualifying questions to CEOs are you really ready? Are you really ready to have a CMO come in and make recommendations based on, decades of experience and working at so many companies where I know it has worked, right? Are you really ready for change? And are you really ready to make investments in marketing to see results? We will have an ROI. We will have a return on those investments. Right. But are you really ready? Because you have to invest money in marketing to get results back, right? And many of the companies that I work with haven't had a CMO before. They've had some tacticians, in place, and the company has grown to a certain level, which is wonderful, but they're not ready to take it to a whole nother level. So you have to be really ready to make change, and it does affect the organization, right? Operations is going to be affected. Customer service is going to be affected. Sales is going to be affected because you're going to be passing them leads and expecting them to do something with it. They have to be ready to really do it. I think the other component of it as the CMO is that everything I do has to be measured, right? Because then we know whether it's successful or not, and we know what to adjust. So it's setting up those clear expectations of what you want to achieve, measuring them, and then be really ready to implement them.
All right, Kari, then let's switch again, and let's imagine there's already like marketing people at the company. There's a marketing team. There's no leadership, but they have like junior and mid-level folks, right? As a team, how do things improve once a fractional CMO has been brought on? How do they change?
Right. Well, that's a really, typical situation because they haven't, they've grown to a certain point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bring in a CMO, right? And they're usually bringing someone in to bring them to a whole nother level of success and growth and revenue. So how does a CMO, lead the team and help them to be successful? I think first and foremost is building relationships with them. I think you have to set, the tone that I'm here to be your advocate. I'm here to listen to you. You have been here. You have known what's worked and what hasn't. I'm here to listen to you, to see what your suggestions are, right? What are you seeing? Where are some lower hanging fruit that you've never had, action before, right? And taking that in and seeing if there's something that we can have some of those quick wins with. I think the other component is that they shouldn't see the CMO as a threat. They should see the CMO as a partner and someone who is going to be advocating on their behalf to not only the CEO and elevating certain issues, but then, working cross-functionally in the company as well, making sure that those barriers are knocked down so that we can make progress.
And Andrea,
as quickly as possible, as quickly as possible.
So, Andrea, what's sort of the biggest change a marketing you normally see or would expect to see in a marketing team from like the beginning of the year to the end of that 12 months once a fractional CMO has been there, like mucking around for a while?
Yeah, I think the biggest change I have seen and would expect to see is sort of everyone marching together towards the same goals and having strategic thinking. Because I think a lot of times, and depending on the stage and size of the organization, I think as Kari said, a lot of times you're coming in as the first marketing leader, as the first fractional or CMO. And in my experience, I've seen, a lot of the marketing team, especially the junior level folks, have sort of just been taking the lead of the CEO, who is like in a lot of times the interim, right? Or there's some other functional leader who they're reporting to who isn't a marketing leader. And so I think, as you're a leader in any function, it's sort of the same thing, right? You sort of want to see that growth and see your team become more strategic and all be working together.
So now it's pretty common, and we're talking about CEOs and CMOs, right? Let's go all the way down, right? I'm the most junior employee on that marketing team, right? And my company has hired a fractional CMO. And I went and checked out what that term even means because I've never heard of fractional anything. And so I'm the most junior person. What am I going to learn in the next 12 months, right? Or what's my opportunity to learn in the next 12 months?
A lot. So I think it really depends on the employee and what they're looking to get out of it and what they're open to. And then it also depends on the fractional CMO. I think so for me, I always like to sort of be a mentor and a coach to junior level employees. I sort of take a diplomatic approach to management, but I really do like to sort of take junior level employees under my wing, if you will, and sort of, mentor them on how to even just navigate their career, let alone like marketing and the ins and outs of marketing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for junior level employees to learn from fractional CMOs. And I think it's just having an open dialogue with them while still being able to stay focused on the strategy and move things forward.
And Kari, how about you? Imagine that you're that 25-year-old junior employee today, and your company has just brought in a fractional CMO, right? And you could tell 25-year-old you, like, grab onto X, make sure that you like extract this in that 1 year opportunity you have. What are you advising yourself?
Yeah. First of all, I love mentoring younger marketers. I coach them in a way so that they change the way they think and the way they present things to their team. It's really important, especially at these smaller companies. Sometimes, employees don't get exposed to the rigor of, marketing decision making that we have to do at bigger companies, right? And I bring that knowledge to them. I will meet with all of my team, not just my direct reports, but, I will meet my overall team often, so that they get to know me and they have some one-on-one time with me. And I make sure that they have the opportunity to present to me their ideas. And we start coaching in the very beginning that I want the younger team members to come into me with a recommendation and tell me why. Why is this a good idea? And what data do you have to back it up that helped you get to that decision, right? Because it should be based in data. Marketing has become very technical now. So I want them to start to develop their strategic thinking skills, right? And even in like agency presentations, I'll have my team there, even the junior people there. And the way that I do it is that I have the youngest and the most inexperienced marketers give their feedback first. And I have them do that because I want them to be able to articulate themselves and once again give very constructive feedback so the agency knows what direction, they should be going in. And then the next senior person goes and gives their direction until it gets to me. And so by the time it gets to me, I really shouldn't have much to say, right? Because my team would have been able to identify all the things that should be changed. Does it support our overall marketing goals and where we are going? All those things. And what happens then is that your junior people start to think differently and they start to approach meetings differently as well. They're not just a listener, they're a participant. And your agency as well is, on their toes, that everyone in the room is going to be articulating their thoughts, right? So the expectation is that come to me with A+ work, right? Because your entire team is going to be evaluating it. And I find that, from direct experience, I've had people come to me on my marketing team that weren't even marketers in some situations. They came from another department but wanted to learn marketing. And by the time they moved on to their next position, they were ready. They were trained. They knew how to think like a strategic marketer. And I think that is very important and a really, really valuable soft skill that you learn by my leadership.
Okay, so we're getting down to the end of our time together. So I'll start with you, Kari, and then we're going to go to Andrea, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there are easier ways to make a living. Honestly, there are less stressful, less kind of roles in every company than being the fractional CMO, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, why do this job? I am not a fractional CMO. Fractional
Great.
CMOs are like the majority of my clients. It's really like 75% of my clients are fractional CMOs, and I get brought into engagement. So I know hundreds and hundreds of them, and I watched hundreds and hundreds of them work. All of them seem to be stressed pretty much all the time. And so, right? Like, why do this job? Like, why is this fun? Let me know. Why is this fun? I can't wait for this answer.
Because I love it. That's why it's fun. Part of this is not only, the strategy work and that you're working at a really high level, and that, when you build trust with these companies and they stay with you for a year, they see real transformation and real growth, measurable growth. And your team has changed. Like I said, they start to think more strategically. You really do transform the organization. And I think also in many cases, you transform the reputation of the marketing department too, right? So I do it because I love it. I also do it because I enjoy building relationships with not only the CEO and the other members of the management team, but because your work, it matters. I mean, you can see the results, right? And it is measurable results. So the stress is worth it because it's incredibly rewarding.
All right. You say so. And Andrea, in any given, and I don't know why this is, by the way, but my wife realized this. We pointed it out when we were going through like a client list. Not only are 75% of my clients fractional CMOs and their clients, but 75% of the fractional CMOs that are my clients are women. They outnumber the men 3-1. And everybody seems frustrated, right? When I talk to them and work with them, and my job is to make their job easier, but they it's a frustrating job, obviously, right? There's multiple stakeholders. It's frustrating. Like, why do this? Why do this?
It's a great question. It makes me think. Recently on LinkedIn, I saw this funny meme, and it was, what's the most stressful part of being a marketer? And the person responded, yes. Because it is. And I think, or I know, being in-house as a marketing leader is equally as stressful. It's stressful in a different way. And I think echoing a lot of what Kari said, the relationship piece, I also really enjoy that. And I think for me, being a fractional versus being in houses, you sort of get to take the best of the agency life that exposes you to a variety of clients and brands doing really cool things, and being the strategic marketing leader. What I've found in the very short time that I have been a fractional CMO is coming in as a fractional, you're able to move things forward more quickly, and maybe cut through the politics, or sort of ignore the politics a little bit more than if you are in-house. And I think we're in this very interesting time where even in the 6 months that I've been a fractional, we're seeing this emergence, we're seeing so many people calling themselves fractionals now. So it's stressful and challenging in the sense that you sort of have to cut through that. But I think the good ones do rise to the top. And we will continue to see that. But yes, it is stressful, but it's also, I don't think I can imagine myself being in a different career. I love marketing. I love being a strategic marketer. So we'll just roll with it.
All right, sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Andrea, so who should contact you and how should they do?
So my spiel, I help purpose-driven organizations grow. So most of my background is in healthcare marketing. So I currently do work with healthcare organizations and purpose-driven organizations. I tend to work with early stage and growth stage organizations. So they should contact me, and they can do so either on my website, if they want to check me out, andreacheney.com, or quite simply, andrea@andreacheney.com.
Okay. And Kari, how about you? Who should contact you these days and how should they do it?
Yeah, I would say medium-sized companies that are in the growth stage that want to take their revenue to a whole nother plateau. And they can get a hold of me at Kari.Franz@BrigadMarketingServices.com.
Okay. Oh, and I want to point out one thing because sometimes I have to. I did not. There's like prep time and a little conversation before we start the recording in case anyone's watching this. And normally, what I mention to guests is like, there's no jargon, right? The audience for this podcast are not other marketers, so we don't use jargon or abbreviations. And you guys didn't use any. I didn't even tell you not to. But like
Intentional.
that's good marketing, right? Where like you knew this audience. This audience is mostly people at companies or leadership teams or CEOs or CEOs assistants, right? That are looking for their fractional CMOs. You guys didn't use any jargon at all. I didn't have to stop and have you explain any abbreviation. I really appreciate that. Sometimes it gets embarrassing. Sometimes I ask someone what ARR is, they blanked. It's like, oh, that's not good. I got to Google this right now because.
I think talking about marketing jargon is a whole other episode.
Yeah, I know, right? All right.
I've been in some companies where it's so thick that they speak. It's like speaking in tongues in meetings. I literally would keep a pad of paper and write down all these acronyms so that I could go back and really sift through and get more granular. What did you actually say?
Not me. I would stop them and ask them. I'd say, I'm really sorry, but like I know a couple of different things that AR could mean. Which one were you talking about? And it is amazing how many times people just use the term. They forget what it's for or what it actually means. The abbreviation or the acronym becomes the concept and not the actual concept. So yes. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks very much. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Kari.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dean. Thanks, Kari.
See you.
It was great to meet you, Andrea.
Great to meet you.